You make me.
Hey, this is Jason from JSM Computer Solutions. Today we're going to disassemble a MacBook Pro A1212, and I've already taken out most of the screws on the side here. There's 3 or 4 screws on each side. Underneath, I've already taken out the memory cover, and then there's 3 screws at the top, right here, here, and here, and then there's 4 screws down at the bottom here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and turn this on so you can see that it powers on. And what I've done is I've gone out and bought one of these multi-sets that actually have a bunch of the Torx screws, Phillips head, and that sort of thing. For right now, we're going to use Phillips head, really small. I don't know what size they are, to be honest with you. But if you go out and buy the multi-set, I think this is a size T6 Torx, and they're like $5-6 at your local store. So it's just good to have. That way, some of these have different size screws in them and that sort of thing. So we can see that power's on, so now we'll go ahead and start disassembling. Like I said, I've taken out most of the screws, so we should be able to just pop out the palm rest and touchpad. So let's see if we can pop this out here. We can go ahead and take out the memory first too. Okay, then you got your memory, and there is actually 2 screws at the top here before we can take that touchpad out. I have not taken out yet. Alright, now it should pop right out for the most part. Oh, 2 screws in the back. Sorry about that. There's actually 2 screws I forgot about sitting right in the back. So they will come out. It is easy to miss some screws doing this because there are a lot of screws that are involved, especially small screws. So forgive me if I forget a screw or 2 along the way. Almost. Alright. Now during the video I'll probably stop it a few times if I'm taking out multiple screws and things like that, so we kind of try to keep this as short as possible. Alright, there we go. And it's just held on by a little adapter there, and then that should be it as far as that. So now what we're going to look at is this, and this is how you take your hard drive out too. So here's your hard drive here, wireless card, fans for both here, motherboard, speakers, and this is a separate, over here underneath the speakers is a separate board for the power and the USB, and then you got your CD-ROM here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and start taking out screws. There's a ton of screws in the motherboard, so I'm going to stop the video. But if you take a look, there's probably 20 different screws to take those all out. So you just got to look for all the screws, pop them all out, and we'll move forward. So I'm going to stop the video for a minute, and then we will go ahead and try to take care of that for you. Thanks. Alright, we've got all the screws out. As you can see here, I'm hoping you can see here. If you look, all these big screw holes here, that probably took about 13, 14 screws out. So what we're going to do here, there's on this CD-ROM here, if you can see it, there's a screw here, and a screw on this other side to take this out. You're going to have to move some wires out of the way so you can see all the screws. That's one of the things with the MacBooks, is sometimes you have to unplug wires to actually see some of the screws. So what we're going to do next is go ahead and pull this DVD-ROM out, and try and we're going to do the hard drive and then try to get the motherboard out and the power board. So let's go ahead and try those few things. So like I said, there's 3 screws to hold in the DVD-ROM. Once you get those out, just pull up the front and then pull it straight out, and it just slides right out. So you've got the screw here. There's a screw on this side here. You can't see that screw right there. And there's a screw at the top right here that holds that in. Then you have your connector here that holds it. It just pops right out. And then what we're going to do next, we're going to go ahead and get the LCD out. That way we can kind of see things a little bit better. But I wanted to get that out of the way since I had already unscrewed it. Screwed it out. All right, so the LCD, which is very heavy. You've got your video cable here, and then you have 2 cables right here that actually pull out, and then you have your Wi-Fi cables over here that'll come out with it too. At the top here, you'll see 3 screws that hold the hinge on, and then 2 screws off to the side, and then you'll see that same thing on the other side. So let's go ahead and get those out, so that way we can go ahead and get that off so we can see a little better here. So give me 1 second, let me get these out real quick, and then we can move on to the power board, hard drive, and then motherboard. So it should be about 10 screws holding on the LCD. And once we get that off, we can see a little better. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and take any of the yellow tape that you can see that's hooked up onto the motherboard. They have a lot of tape that hold the wires down and that sort of thing. So that way we'll have that done. You can pull the wires out pretty easily. Alright, a couple more. And we should be able to get this LCD right off. Then we'll pull the hard drive out, and then we'll do the power board, which has a speaker on top of it. Alright, so once we get those off, you'll see if we pull the, I don't know if I'm able to do this without it falling, but if you pull the graphics cable out, just pull it, slide it backwards, it should come right out. And then you have two cables at the top that you want to pop off. You got to be very careful with this because it's taped onto the fan, so the tape doesn't want to come with it, but you'll pop that off. Pull the back side here. There's 3 cables for the Wi-Fi, and then it comes right off. This is what the cables look like. Right there's your Wi-Fi. There's your 2 extra cables on the other side, and then your graphics cable. That's for the power, those other 2 extra cables. Alright. Let me show you on the board here where they went to. So now that we have some room, right here is where the graphics cable came. Right here and here. Actually, sorry. Right here and here with the other 2 cables, and then your Wi-Fi card here. So now we're going to work on the power board, which is a separate board that's right here. This attaches with these wires here to the actual motherboard. So first what we're going to do is we have a speaker that's on top, so we're going to take that off first, and it should be held on by 2 screws. And then we should be able to just pull that up. Actually, we got to take off also the Wi-Fi card is actually attached to it too. Wrong screw. And then we got the Wi-Fi card that will come up. So there's your Wi-Fi card. It sits right on top of the speaker. So if we pull up right here, you see the speaker right here. You should just be able to pop that right out now. Just pull right off the board. As you can see here, that's the board, and then you have your screw here and the screw there. Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're just going to go ahead and start unplugging some of these wires. And what we'll probably do, let's see, we can take out the hard drive too and make it a little easier. So we got the hard drive right here. It's actually fastened on by some tape. So we'll take those off. And then what we're going to do is there's a bracket that holds it in. We're going to undo that bracket right here. Another screw over here. As soon as we undo that bracket, that releases. That will release the hard drive. So as soon as we get that out, we should be able to pull it right out. Such. Some more tape. Alright. So that bracket was holding these little rubber pieces. And if you can see on the other side, we just got regular screws that are in there to hold it in. And that will leave us with the cabling, which pops right off the motherboard, like that. Alright, so now the power board has got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. So we're just going to take those out. There's a screw in between the 2 audio ports, so don't forget to grab that one and don't miss that one. Alright, so once we get those screws out, we can pop out the wires, but you can pop out the wires first, whatever you decide. Sometimes it's easier to pop the screws out first, or but sometimes in this case it might be easier to pull that way. Alright, so here is your power button board here. It's got all the ports, USB, and all that. Here's what the wires look like that were attached here, and here. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break for a second. Let me double check to make sure we didn't miss any of the screws on the motherboard, and then we'll go to that step. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up here. We've got your fans. So what we're going to do is pull these off right here. And there's a screw that's underneath, that was underneath that speaker that we need to take off on this one here. And we should be good to go. Now, they're actually taped to the heatsink, so you're going to have to pull those off and kind of pull it off like that on each one, because the heatsink actually wraps around the bottom. So all you gotta do is pull the cable up here. If I can get it off, and just pull off the tape, so it comes out just like that. Other than that, we have this one speaker right here that's actually attached. So what we're going to try and do here is actually pull the motherboard up. Let's go ahead and take off right here. If you can see it, there's where the battery attaches. We could pull it off the other way, but it'd probably make it easier to pull this off after we get the board out. So there's two screws holding that on. So now when we pull it up, let's double check. Pull it up, and it should slide right out without too much effort here. Alright, and there's a little board right here. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see the tape. Let's pop that off. And then we have the one cable right here that we need to pop off. You should just pull right straight out here. And there comes the motherboard. One more wire right here. This is actually the sensor for the heatsink. Alright, then we got the speaker wire, and so we can actually pull the speaker off here. Alright, there's your speaker, and it actually has the BIOS battery at the back end there. So if we flip it around, the GPU and your CPU here, here's the power, right here. That was the battery. You can pull that right off without any problems. Alright, and then you've got your heatsink that comes right off. It should pop right off for you, no problems. And then you have your bottom case. It's just got some wires to it for the power, for the power button in the front with the latches. So that is all for the bottom part of this. And what we're going to do now is get ready to do the LCD. So I'm going to get that prepped for you, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, we are now ready to go ahead and do the LCD. So we have the LCD here. There is a screw right here behind these middle posts and one on the other side. We'll take those two out real quick, and then we're going to work on getting this apart. Now the key to try and taking these apart is to be very careful of the LCD bezel. The LCD bezel is aluminum, and they are very easily bent. So we got to make sure that we're very careful about that. And you can go on eBay, and they're not cheap. Some of them are 20 bucks. Most of them are 100. So we got to try and be very careful in how we do this. And you got to move this little metal bracket, little post here. If you have one, got to try and move it out of the way and get this screw out. And so just bend it out of the way a little bit and then try and move that screw out of the way. Alright. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and take a flathead screwdriver and basically what we're going to do is we're going to try right here where there's a little bit of a spot right there. Try and pry it away a little bit at a time. Let me see if I can get a little piece going here, and I'll show you. Don't try and do it too hard, just got to make sure you get enough to move it away a little bit. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a lip. I don't know if you can see it like that. There's a little bit of a lip right there now. So we're just going to work our way around and try and pry the lip away very carefully. As I said, you will easily bend this. And then just try and see if you can work around. Now there's just little lips. So if you try and work on each side here and then try and push it away from the lip very carefully. Now there's going to be glue on the other side too. So you got to be careful of the glue. That's where a lot of the LCDs that I've done have bent in the past. Is more the glue than the actual lip. Because what they've done is they've glued it to the actual LCD. Let's see if I can get this some more here. Once you get it going, you can get in the corner here. As you can see it. Once we got the top portion done, then you can kind of go into the bottom corner if you want to and try and get that. Once we get this portion off, you just got to get the lip. It's not working the way I want it to on this one here. Like I said, if you start pulling on it, it'll bend for sure. So you kind of have to take these off the opposite way that you would normally take off a bezel. Pull it from the actual cover rather than the actual bezel. A lot of the ones I do it from pull the bezel off. On the MacBook Pros, I pulled the back cover off. Just keep working it until it comes off. Eventually it's going to come off. And once you get one corner down, then the rest is kind of, there we go. See how I got the corner? Once you get that corner, then the rest is easy. You should be able to pull. Good. Okay, so now that we got that corner right here, now just work your way and pull away from the LCD. See how it's coming up? And it's got these little lips on it, so it grabs on there. Alright, let's work on the other side here. I have to pull it away for a second so I can get this one up here. Okay, then you got the corner, and then the LCD back cover just pops right off. Sorry, that took a few minutes, but it comes off pretty easily once you get that top piece done. So now we have to deal with a bunch of screws and cabling and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start working on the actual hinge, which is this portion right here. And so you've got the rubber hinge right here, cover, and then you got the metal hinge cover. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take the rubber hinge off. And how you're going to do that is, if you look, you probably can't see them, but if you got one actually in front of you, there's little tiny little screws here. And we're going to work on those real quick. And then if you have a magnetized screwdriver, it'd be a whole lot easier. That's how big the screws are, if you can see them. They're really tiny. I'll tell you in a minute how many there are. There's also things you're going to have to move out of the way. So you have these orange, it's basically tape, but it's part of the LCD inverter cables. So you're going to pull those off because behind them are screws for different reasons, and you got to take them off anyway. So pull those off. Just to make sure you don't miss any screws before you start pulling at stuff. Okay. So basically what they're covering up is the screws for the metal part. But what we're going to try and do is we're going to pull up this LCD inverter right here. You're going to pull this cable out right here. And then you're going to pull the actual LCD inverter on the other side out. That way you can see the rest of the screws. There's the LCD inverter. Alright. So you've got, once you pull that out, you'll see the cables. You'll see two screws right here in the middle. Pull that rubber piece off. If you have a magnetized screwdriver, that is very helpful. Even in some cases it still doesn't work, but it's helpful. Alright, and then we have one right at where the graphics cable goes in. And that should be it for those. Let's see here. Let's see if we can pull it off. It should pull right off now. And it does. So that's what it looks like right there. Alright. So now you can see your cables for your Wi-Fi and all that stuff. So now we're going to take the middle portion of it off. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 screws that hold that on. There was 5 screws that held the rubber portion on. So let me take these screws out real quick. And just remember, like I said, all this is aluminum, so it's very easy to break and bend. There are some screws that hold in the actual cables, so there's mounted on there. And once we get this off, then we'll be pretty good to go. And your graphics cable is held on by some tape, which you want to take off because there's actually a screw behind it. So you want to take off this tape here, and then this tape here they're already taken off. So that way you can get to that one screw. That holds it on. Alright, once we get that tape off, we should be able to move this out of the way a little bit. And there's a screw right behind it. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a screw right there. So let me try and get that real quick. Just keep in mind also that everything's got glue on it for the most part. So what we're going to do, now that we have all the screws out, is we're going to try and pull this aluminum hinge piece off. Once again, trying not to bend it or break it, because it does have some glue on it. And I usually have a problem with one side. Usually if you get one side up and hold it up a little bit, let's see, so that comes off just like that, and it's got the Wi-Fi cables inside of it. If you take one side of this, if you can get one side to move it around, this hinge, and then kind of move it up, not too hard so it bends, but enough to get it up. It usually breaks free the other side. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and get all these cables out of the way. So you can just pull off the graphics cable, because there shouldn't be anything holding on to that now. We're taking the tape off. And then on this side here, we have the webcam cable. So just hold on by some tape, pull the tape off, and it's got some real tape up here. It's kind of actually glued a little bit, and then you got some black tape at the top right here. So we'll pull that off. I apologize you can't see that great since this is a 17-inch. It's a little difficult to show, but this is held on by a cable. You just pull that out, and then your webcam board is actually screwed in, and we'll take care of that real quick and get that off. Just held on by 2 screws. and just pulls right off. There's your webcam board. Alright, your actual webcam too comes right off. If you can get to it, we might take that off once we're finished so we can get to it a little bit better. Alright, so now you want your LCD away from the bezel, because now I assume if you're going this far, you're probably replacing your LCD. So we've got 4 screws on the side here, and 4 screws on this side. So we'll stop the video for a minute. Let me take those screws out, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to take this bezel off and the hinges. Okay, so we've got all the screws out, and there was 2 extra screws, one at the top, actually 2 at the top, one on each side at the top, before you can get the rest of the screws out of the LCD bezel. So now what we're going to do, I've already taken out one of the hinges here. We're going to take out this hinge right here, and I'm going to show you how this happens here. So we're just going to unscrew. There's 4 screws that hold that on. There's actually 2 screws behind that I've already taken out. So just make sure you grab all the screws before you start taking it off. I've also already pre-prepped the LCD bezel to come off. I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright. So you can have a nice smooth removal. Get the screw out here. So here is your first part of the hinge, and then you have the second part of the hinge that's right here. So all you're going to do is just take a screwdriver, obviously, and take it off. And it's just the piece that sits underneath it. And there's that part of the hinge. Okay, so what I've done is, like I said, I've already pre-prepped it. But what you're going to do is, put on the side here, take a flathead screwdriver, and then you're just going to run the screwdriver underneath this black matting just a little bit at a time here. And you might have to pull up just a little bit. And all you want to do is get it enough so you can pop it off. So you want to start at the top and then just pry it back. And it should pop right off. And then you're going to do that all the way down on both sides if it gets stuck. And then at the bottom, flip it over. Then try to pry it off. What you want to do here, same thing, use the screwdriver and pull up on it. Take your screwdriver, so I can get it down low enough here, and just pry up on it just a little bit. And then it should pop right off. So you're going to run it all around if you get stuck. And the reason why you want to pull up just a little bit is because it will start taking out the actual metal from the LCD. And there is your LCD taken apart. Only thing left on here I've already taken off is your webcam. And just a note on that is there is a screw right next to it, so pull the screw off and you should be all set. And that should be it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at sales@jsmcomputersolutions.com. And thank you for viewing the video.